Welcome to part 2 of the Back to School Lit service. So in the next videos, not just part 2, but parts 3, and I think there's a fourth, we're going to be covering these topics: pedestrian and bicycle safety, vehicle backing in cul-de-sacs, intersections and turns, bloodborne pathogens, hazardous communications. These two are the OSHA topics that we do every year. We're going to talk about our personal protective equipment policy, otherwise known as PPE. We're going to do an accident review. We're going to review the DVIRs, or the Daily Vehicle Inspection Report, and the expectations on those. And then we're going to do a little bit of a Driver Monitor 101, the basic expectations that we have for each of you, and a few little other review items as well. So we're going to start out talking about pedestrians and bicyclists. These two groups of individuals, people who are walking and people who are on bikes, present unique challenges to us as school bus drivers because of the height of our vehicle and where the driver sits and how quickly these folks can move in and out of our blind spots. They can be difficult to see, yet if we have an accident with them, the consequences can be deadly. And we never want to be in that position where we, didn't see someone and now it has cost them their life. So let's go ahead and do some review, and we'll talk a little bit about pedestrian and bicyclists.
As a professional school bus driver, there are a lot of things that you have to consider when you're out on the road, especially at intersections and when making turns. Pedestrians and cyclists are especially at risk since they have little to no protection. And if your large, heavy school bus ever comes into contact with a pedestrian or a cyclist, the consequences will most likely be tragic. Your goal is to do it right the first time, every time. When you apply the practices that we'll explain here, you'll do it right and remove or reduce the risk of having an accident with a pedestrian or a cyclist. Your most useful tools for eliminating unsafe behaviors are the practices taught in the LLC Defensive Driving Program. Looking ahead, looking around, leaving room, and communicating will help you to avoid ever having an accident involving a pedestrian or a cyclist.
That was a nice break.
Yeah, it's like we learn as much on break as we do on set.
Guys, we're live.
Oh.
Oh.
All right, in this segment, we're going to talk about pedestrian road rules. Now, everyone should know these rules in order to be safe. One thing I'm sure you know is that pedestrians facing a green signal can cross the road within a marked or unmarked crosswalk, unless the sole green signal is a turn arrow. So what else do we know?
Well, pedestrians aren't allowed to start crossing the street on a don't walk signal or a wait signal. But if they're already partially across when the don't walk signal or wait signal does come on, they can proceed to a sidewalk or safety island.
Yeah, but we can't rely on the signal, though. I've noticed that pedestrians try to hurry and catch the tail end of a walk signal, or they just don't care what the signal says and think they can judge for themselves when to cross.
As professional drivers, though, we must yield the right-of-way to pedestrians crossing the road in a crosswalk if there's no traffic control signal. We also have to yield when the pedestrian is on the half of the road that we're traveling on, or when they're approaching so closely from the opposite half of the road that they'd be in danger if they stopped.
However, pedestrians must yield the right-of-way to us if they're crossing at a place other than in marked crosswalk or in an unmarked crosswalk at an intersection.
And pedestrians aren't allowed to suddenly leave a curb and proceed into our path so close that it's impossible to yield.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they won't do that. They aren't always aware of the rules. In fact, most of the time, they think that we have to yield to them no matter what.
Right. So that's how scanning the environment can help prevent pedestrian accidents. When you constantly look around, you have more time to react.
And remember, it's a good idea to warn pedestrians with a friendly tap of the horn if you think that they're too close or thinking about crossing in front of you. It seems impossible that they wouldn't be aware of a huge school bus, but it happens. So what are some of the most common types of pedestrian accidents? Well, here's one. The mid-block dart out.
Oh yeah, the mid-block dart out. Not much you can do about that, right?
Well, we've been saying it all along. You have to constantly look around, even in places where you don't think you'll encounter a hazard. I always say, expect the unexpected.
Well, how about this one? The intersection dash. People thinking they have enough time to cross in front of you, but they don't. I always make sure I cover my brake in pedestrian areas, especially at intersections.
Turning and merging can definitely cause pedestrian accidents. That's why it's so important to rock and roll in your seat, to see around your blind spots. You have to check your mirrors and recheck them again halfway through your turn.
There could also be something obstructing your view at a crosswalk, or another vehicle could be blocking a pedestrian who's coming your way.
Bus stops are another common area where pedestrian accidents happen.
Oh, I got one. Backing is another common cause of pedestrian accidents. That's why I only back when absolutely necessary, and I haven't backed up once without a spotter.
You know, one thing I remember is that keeping your windshield clean can help prevent pedestrian accidents. And it's so simple. The dirt and debris on your windshield causes glare and reduces visibility, which makes it harder to see pedestrians. So just clean your windshield.
Well, let me run clean up and cover one more. How about at the school when kids try to squeeze between the line of buses?
I almost forgot about that one. Buses usually line up and leave at the same time. But if you leave a big enough gap, kids will slip through and they could get hit by a car or another bus. So remember to park as close as you can to the bus in front of you. So we're obligated to share the road with bicyclists. In fact, they're required to follow the same rules that we do, so they always have the same rights.
Did you know that bicycles can ride two abreast?
Yeah, I've seen that. And a bicyclist on a one-way road with two or more marked traffic lanes can ride as near as practical to the left curb or edge of the road.
And a bicyclist who's moving slower than other traffic on the road, which is usually the case, can ride as near as practical to the right curb or edge of the roadway, unless, one, they're passing another vehicle, two, they're preparing to turn left at an intersection or onto a private road or driveway, or three, there's an obstacle that prevents them from riding next to the right curb.
That's a lot to worry about in a big school bus. I mean, bicycles are so much smaller and can't move as fast, but they can quickly change direction, stop faster, and move through smaller spaces.
Yeah, and sometimes drivers take advantage of the fact that they're small and usually keep to the edge of the road. A few years ago, a bus driver was on a narrow two-lane road following a cyclist and had to wait a while due to oncoming traffic. She got impatient and she tried to pass the bike, but an oncoming car caused her to swing back into her lane, pushing the cyclist off his bike. Luckily, he was only slightly hurt.
You just got to be patient and wait. You'll get a safe gap in traffic soon enough. You don't want to rush and create more risk.
The best thing you can do is give them plenty of room. Look ahead when you drive and plan to pass bicyclists quickly and efficiently. Remember, you want to focus your vision on the action that's happening at least 15 seconds in front of you.
Also, if you're planning to turn right immediately after passing a bicyclist, make sure you give them enough lead out so you don't cut them off. Most people don't realize how fast they are. They can travel like 15 to 30 miles per hour. Now let's talk about some safe practices when it comes to cyclists. Like I said before, keeping your windshield clean is one way to prevent collisions with bicyclists. Now, what are some other safe practices?
Careful how you use your horn. It could actually scare them and cause an accident.
If it's nighttime, don't use your high beams around them. They could blind the bicyclist and cause an accident.
You should also be extra cautious around bicyclists wearing headphones and those who aren't wearing helmets. That usually means that they're not safety conscious.
Another thing is that bicyclists could be riding alongside the right side of the bus when you're approaching stops, and you could hit them with your doors.
Cyclists may try to pass your bus on either side and just assume you know that they're there. Keep your eye out for cyclists and know where they are before you turn left or right or change lanes. If unsure, slow down or stop until you know the area you're moving into is clear.
Yeah, and some bicyclists like to use the bus for support when stopped at red lights. You need to make sure the side of your bus is clear before you move. And you need to keep an eye on your mirrors for approaching bikes and make sure you know where they are before taking off.
Actually, one of the worst situations is mid-block ride-out, when a bicyclist enters the road from a driveway, alley, or curb and doesn't even slow down, stop, or look for traffic. That's actually the most frequent type of accident involving young cyclists.
Or where the cyclist enters an intersection to cross the street without observing the stop sign or traffic signal. A lot of child and teenage bicycle accidents are because the cyclist failed to yield the right of way.
And again, you have to be especially alert for bicyclists during left-hand turns. A cyclist is actually more likely to be hit by a vehicle that's turning left than by one that's turning right. It's because they're relatively small and you're not looking for them. You don't see them, so you turn left right into them.
We all need to do our part to prevent tragic accidents with pedestrians and bicyclists. Always remember, rock and roll in your seat to see around blind spots. Always recheck your mirrors halfway through your turn.
Tap your horn and establish eye contact with pedestrians, and cover your brake in high pedestrian areas. Your safest bet is to always expect them to walk out into the street, and use the look around and look ahead principles to stay alert so you can react quickly.
When pedestrians or cyclists are around, be extra careful and allow them the right of way. If you see a pedestrian or cyclist and then lose track of them and aren't sure where they are, slow down or stop until you do. You need to know where they are and where they're going.
Remember, they have no protection and you have a big bus. Do everything you can to eliminate the risk of having an accident with pedestrians and cyclists.
So to recap what was talked about in these videos, we are required to share the road with pedestrian and bicyclist. Now, some roads are nice and wide, and you have a bike lane, you have sidewalks, and there's good places for them to be out of the way of traffic. But we know what real life is, and that doesn't always happen. Even on nice wide roads with bike lanes and sidewalks, you may still have a pedestrian or a bicyclist who is in the roadway or very close to the edge of the roadway. So we have to be very aware of those. Pedestrians and bike riders, they may not know the laws or they just may not care. So we have to adjust ourselves. We are the professional. We have to adjust our driving accordingly. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to slow down in those high pedestrian areas. Think about what are some high pedestrian areas that we encounter every day. The school zones, all around the schools, the high schools, the middle schools, the elementaries, kids walking. When they're coming out of school, especially schools like Eagle High School, Lake Hazel Middle School, you have students that are crossing basically the area that the buses are driving in to get to their bus. Now, we have been working with the district to identify these areas and hopefully find better choices for parking, but in some of these schools, this is what we have to deal with right now. Now, we did change the parking order at Meridian Middle. If you go in there, the area that always call it the corral off of Cherry there, the buses no longer go in there. They go over to Camilla, and they're able to line up along a sidewalk, and it's worked so much better. It has those students so that they're lessening the chance of having to walk where a bus is driving. If you drove there last year, you know what a nightmare it was. Many times buses were coming in and students are coming out of the school. And of course, students don't always understand the dangers associated with a large vehicle. They're carefree, they're just paying attention to their own thing, or they've got a bravado thing going on, whatever it is, they don't understand the risk, but we do. So slow down in those high pedestrian areas. In neighborhoods, your speed should not be going over 20 miles an hour. When a person is standing outside of the bus and you go past them at 25 miles an hour, it feels a lot faster than it does in the bus because of the size of the vehicle. It's very hard for a pedestrian or someone standing outside of the bus to judge the actual speed that the bus is going. So you may feel like you're crawling along at 25, but you're actually, the perception is that you're going a lot faster. But in those neighborhoods, 20 and under. Now, with the tablets, especially right now, as the tablets are learning the routes, if you're going over 20, it can be hard for the tablet to catch up and affect your turn by turn. So another reason you want to keep that speed down. Plus, you can have cars that are coming out of driveways, people walking, animals, children playing, bicycles everywhere. Now we have like the scooters, skateboarders, electric bikes, a lot of things that we could potentially be interacting with in neighborhoods. When you're on the road, if you have bicyclists and you need to go around them, slow way down. Be sure to check to the left of you before you go over into that next lane to go around them. Now, if it's clear, go ahead and do that. But we had some accidents last year where drivers attempted to go around an obstruction or a person on the side of the road, and when they moved over, there was already a vehicle occupying that lane next to them. And they didn't even see him because they didn't really look. before they moved over. So slow down first. Make sure that whatever is on the left of you is clear before you attempt to go around. And don't fly past them. And be careful with using your horn around them as well. You could startle them, especially because so many people now wear earbuds and they have that noise canceling feature. So they're not necessarily hearing the traffic. They may not even hear that you are behind them. When you come to intersections with crosswalks, now it was pointed out in the video that every intersection is a crosswalk, and that is Idaho state law. Even if it's not painted as a crosswalk, every intersection functions as one, and that is where pedestrians are legally allowed to cross. Okay. The thing that I see issues with is people trying to beat the pedestrian. So the pedestrian has started across on the opposite side from you, and you go through to try and get across that before the pedestrian comes through, or not waiting for the pedestrian to fully clear the lane that you need to go into. If you remember this summer in downtown Boise, there was a dump truck that was making a right-hand turn, did not see the kid on the skateboard in the crosswalk. The kid was crossing legally, and the dump truck hit and killed the student. It was a 16-year-old Boise high school student. So watch for those pedestrians before you cross any crosswalk, looking, rocking and rolling. For any of these scenarios, you want to rock and roll in your seat, look around the blind spots, check those mirrors, check again, and just really watch out for these pedestrians and bicyclists. So now let's talking about backing up. We talk about it all the time, and quite frankly, we can't talk about it enough. It is one of the most dangerous maneuvers that we perform in a school bus is backing up. Now, you'll hear in the video that they're going to talk about try not to back if at all possible. But there are real life situations where you're going to have to back. And all of you that drive a bus are going to have to do it at least twice a day. When you back out of your parking spot, though there's going to be backing involved. But we're also going to talk about cul-de-sacs and what we're going to do in that event.
Backing is one of the most dangerous maneuvers you can make with a large vehicle and must always be approached with extreme caution. Again, it should only be performed when absolutely necessary and, if at all possible, with a trusted spotter.
Why? I rock and roll to see around my blind spots. Isn't that enough?
Even if you rock and roll, there are still areas that you can't see when you're backing up. Also, you can't watch every mirror in every angle at the same time. While you're looking in one mirror, a vehicle or person could move into the space on the other side. Let's face it, when backing, your view of what you're approaching is often blocked. That's why accidents involving backing are one of the highest accident frequencies on record. Simply put, your ability to see where you're going is very limited. So if you're not extremely careful, you could back into vehicles, mailboxes, fences, posts, and even pedestrians. At some operations, drivers are required to call dispatch if they have to back their vehicle. It may seem like a hassle and time-consuming, but it's never a bad idea to get a second opinion from your supervisor. Calling dispatch is another precaution you can take to reduce backing accidents. Remember, accidents are always preventable, and especially backing accidents. Again, the goal is to stay safe. If you never back your vehicle, you'll never be at risk for having a backing accident. This would make you safer. You should always be aware of what's happening in and around your vehicle, and that includes behind it. Remember, you have a big blind spot directly behind your vehicle. Knowing what's happening around your vehicle at all times will help you avoid an accident if you ever have to back the vehicle. Remember, all accidents happen for one of three reasons. Let's review those reasons now. The first is people fail to pay attention.
I don't know about other drivers, but I always pay attention, especially when I'm backing up.
Okay, but let's say you're reverse parking the vehicle on the ready line, and instead of continually checking your mirrors while backing, you get distracted when you see a coworker in the yard and you have to wave to them. In that moment, you fail to pay attention, and bam, you back into another vehicle. The second reason that people have accidents is people exceed their performance capabilities. Trying to back a vehicle without first getting out and looking to see what's behind it is a classic example of exceeding your capabilities. Face it, you can't see behind the vehicle from your seat, and that's why you must get out and look. The third reason is people engage in patterns of unsafe behavior. I know of one operator who would never get out of her vehicle and walk around it to see if it was safe to back. Well, just like it says in safety best practices, unsafe behavior repeated often enough will always result in an accident. And sure enough, she eventually backed up and struck a pedestrian. She claims that she never saw her until it was too late. Each location is different, but a good policy states that you should always avoid backing your vehicle. It's all about minimizing your risk. If you don't have to back the vehicle, you won't have a backing accident.
But that's not always possible. There are times when you do have to back the vehicle. Sometimes it's unavoidable.
Of course, like in certain situations in the yard. However, if at all possible, you should try to change the situation permanently so that you don't have to back. But if it can't be changed, you have to make sure the area around the vehicle is clear before backing. To do this, you have to use a spotter or get out and look, also known as GOAL for short. In some states or districts, the driver is not allowed to get out of the vehicle if students are aboard. However, if you are allowed, get out and look. Your trainer will tell you the practice in your location. Part of the definition of an accident is that accidents are unplanned events. If you hit a car while backing the vehicle, that's an accident. What can you add to the definition of accidents?
So really good reminders. Number one, first and foremost, GOAL, get out and look. And we've talked about ways that you can get out and look with students on board. If you have students on board, you're not going to get out of the bus, but you can put a student in the rear seat, have them spot for you. You can walk down the aisle, open that rear door, and look out. You can drop the windows on each side and put your head out and look. Back really slowly if you need to, and make sure you're following the protocols. Check your mirrors if you need to. It may be before you do a backing maneuver that you need to adjust your flat mirrors down so you can see your tires, have a better view of what's behind you. Just don't forget that before you get going on the road again, to get those mirrors back up in the correct position for driving. So what about cul-de-sacs? We have a lot of routes this year that have cul-de-sacs, and we're always going to have to deal with them, especially our special needs routes. Now, before the school year even started, when we were doing dry runs, we had 3 accidents, and 2 of those involved cul-de-sacs. One of them was a branch broke a window on a bus because of the way the bus was going through the cul-de-sac, trying to go around the perimeter of the cul-de-sac. And the other one was the bus driver. So when you're coming into the cul-de-sac, you know that you go to the right and go around the perimeter. And sometimes when it's tight, if you go to the left and go around that way, the bus turns tighter. Well, the driver attempted to do that and struck a vehicle that was parked on the street right at the entrance of the cul-de-sac. So let's watch this video on how you are going to do your cul-de-sac turnarounds, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Welcome to Fulton County Schools Transportation Cul-de-sac Turnaround Procedures. Fulton County Schools' standard procedure is to do a 3-point turnaround in a cul-de-sac for safety. As you approach and enter the cul-de-sac, activate the hazard lights and scan the area for any hazards or obstructions. Pull forward so the front wheels are in the center of the cul-de-sac and come to a complete stop. Scan the area and check all the mirrors. Turn the steering wheel all the way to the left without moving the bus. Drive to the left curb and stop before encroaching on property. Scan all mirrors and turn the steering wheel all the way to the right without moving. Shift to reverse and carefully back while continuing to scan the mirrors. Back only as far as needed to complete the turn and stop. Shift to drive and turn the steering wheel all the way to the left without moving. Drive forward, scanning mirrors, and carefully exit the cul-de-sac. After exiting the cul-de-sac, cancel your hazards. As you approach and enter the cul-de-sac, activate the hazard lights and scan the area for any hazards or obstacles, identifying that there is an obstacle. Pull forward and adjust your positioning to allow for a safe three-point turn and come to a complete stop. Scan the area and check all the mirrors. Turn the steering wheel all the way to the left without moving the bus. Drive to the left, avoiding any obstacle, and stop short of encroaching on property. Scan all mirrors and turn the steering wheel all the way to the right without moving. Shift to reverse and carefully back while continuing to scan the mirrors. Keep in mind the location of the obstacle. Back only as far as needed to complete the turn and stop. Shift to drive and turn the steering wheel all the way to the left without moving. Drive forward, scanning mirrors, and carefully exit the cul-de-sac. After exiting the cul-de-sac, cancel your hazards.
So as a review for backing, use your rock and roll technique. For almost anything that we do, we're going to rock and roll in your seat. This was hammered hard in your classroom training. Your behind the wheel trainers hammered it hard. We talk about it all of the time. You should never just be in that seat. We should never have, a big butt print and a back print because you never move. Okay, you should be moving forward, moving back, turning your head, looking around those blind spots. And think about what causes blind spots in a bus. You've got the bus itself, the support pillars for the windshield, the molding on the doors. You've got that center piece down the center of your door where your doors come together. That's a blind spot. Your mirrors. When you're sitting in an intersection, there is usually one lane of traffic on each side that is somewhat blocked by your mirrors. The rear of the bus is a big blind spot. You need to rock and roll to see around your blind spots as much as you can and use the GOAL, get out and look for that rear back blind spot. Like she said, backring is one of the most dangerous maneuvers. So monitors, it is required of you to assist your driver with backing. Okay, and I've had some drivers come in here and say, I do better without them. I don't want them to do it. I don't care. That monitor, at the very least, needs to be standing in the back of that bus so they can yell out if you come close to hitting something. Okay, they don't have to stand there and say a whole bunch of stuff. You need to communicate that together. Okay, but they need to be at the rear of the bus and seeing what is back there. Could you potentially be hitting something or have something back there that you don't see? And so that is what that monitor spotting is for. Cul-de-sac. So let's talk a little bit about those. Before you enter any cul-de-sac, any type of thing where you're going to have to do some sort of turnaround, take a pause. Stop for a few seconds. Take in the whole scene and see what is there. Is there a center island in this cul-de-sac or turnaround? Is this a roundabout? Is there a vehicle parked anywhere in here or a basketball hoop? Is it garbage day? What is going on in this cul-de-sac that could potentially be safety issues for your bus and getting through safely? And I'm going to say about 80 to 85% of the time you should be using the three-point turnaround that was in the video you just saw. Use that technique. Okay, and one of the cul-de-sac accidents, the driver said to me, I was trying to avoid backing. That's why he went to the left and tried to go around the perimeter. Okay, but an accident happened. Had the 3-point turnaround been done, wouldn't have even encountered that vehicle that was parked where it shouldn't have been. Okay, and see, that's the thing, is even if a vehicle is parked where it shouldn't have been and you hit it, it's still an accident. You still caused that. And if the police officer decides to ticket you, you will get cited for that because you saw where the vehicle was. It's up to you to avoid that vehicle. Okay, so use that 3-point turnaround whenever possible. Now, I understand there's situations it's not going to work. The biggest one is when you get those cul-de-sacs that have the Gilligan's Island in the center. That's, again, you're going to have to take that pause, see what's going on with that, and go through those cul-de-sacs slowly. The faster you go, the more the more space your bus takes up. And you're getting paid by the minute, okay? Slowing it down is not going to take up so much time that it's going to cause big issues with your route. But if you get in an accident, that will now cause big issues with your route. Do try to eliminate unnecessary backing. Now, on your route sheets, if you have a cul-de-sac that you feel is not needed, maybe you know that you could make a couple of turns and eliminate the need to go into that cul-de-sac. A big one we had was at Artesian and Hatchery. Now, I tried to get all of those changed so that we weren't doing a 3-point turnaround there at Pitkin, at Hatchery and Pitkin. You should either come in off the Artesian, go to Hatchery and then come out, or come in on Hatchery, go to Artesian and then come out. But for Reg Ed routes, there should be no turnaround there. We need to eliminate unnecessary turnarounds. Now, for special needs routes, it's a little bit different, especially if your student lives in the cul-de-sac. You're probably going to have to go in there. And I understand sometimes there are going to be some cul-de-sacs where there's going to be a lot of cars parked. It's what we deal with. Okay, so come and talk to me about those. I can pull it up on Google Maps. We can look at the satellite view, see what's going on. I'm always happy to go out in my car and physically look and see what's going on there to see, can we eliminate this turnaround? And if we can't, what are the options? Okay, so we can discuss that together. And if you have an accident and I can put in there that, hey, we discussed these options and this is what was decided was the safest course of action, and you were following that, that goes a whole lot better for you than you just took matters into your own hands and did what you wanted to do without discussing it with management. So, and with the parking spots. So I took out the video dealing with parking spots, but remember this for your parking spots: garbage in, garbage out. Okay, park your bus in between. So you've got the little pink whiskers at the end of the parking spot that delineates out your spot. Okay, make sure you try to be as centered as you can in your parking spot. If you need to, get a stick and make a line from that little pink whiskers all the way up to the top of it, so that you can see what is your boundaries for your parking spot. If you are parked way too far over to the left or way too far over to the right, you are risking an accident when backing out, and you're risking the other buses parked around you when backing out, because you're making it very difficult for them to maneuver as well. Garbage in, garbage out. You park badly going in, it's going to be really hard to get out and you're risking an accident. Be quality in pulling into your spot, and it'll be a lot easier and safer and reduce a lot of risk of an accident pulling out. If you're not sure about the reference points, the safety Bible that I gave you last school year has a very detailed instructions on pulling into your parking spot and the reference points to use. Learn those reference points. If you don't have that, come talk to me. I will get you with a trainer, and you can practice backing in and out of your parking spot so as to reduce the risk. So this is the end of the second section of the Back to School in-service. You will move on to section 3. On your syllabus that I have given you, you will need to date the day that you watch the video, and you will initial on that syllabus as well. If you look at it, there's a place for the initials. So you're going to initial the pedestrian and bicyclist section and the safe backing and cul-de-sac section. And I will see you in part 3.